A few months ago, I woke up exhausted after what should have been a full night of sleep. The strange part wasn't that I had slept badly. It was that I couldn't remember ever actually falling asleep. One moment I was lying in bed thinking, and the next it was morning. It felt like my mind had been running all night without me. For a long time, I thought the problem was stress. That's what everyone says, right? If your brain won't shut off at night, you're stressed. But the more I paid attention, the more I realized something didn't add up. Because some of my worst nights happened on perfectly normal days. No crisis. No emergency. No terrible news. Just me, lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling while my thoughts refused to stop. Every night followed the same pattern. I'd finish dinner, watch a little TV, scroll through my phone, brush my teeth, and get into bed. At first, everything felt normal. Then the silence would arrive. And that's when my brain would wake up. Not physically. Mentally. Thoughts I hadn't considered all day suddenly appeared. Conversations from weeks ago. Emails I needed to answer. Things I should have said. Things I shouldn't have said. Random memories from 10 years earlier. Future scenarios that would probably never happen. I remember thinking it was almost impressive. My brain could find an unlimited supply of things to think about. The frustrating part was that none of those thoughts seemed important during the day. Only at night. Only when I wanted to sleep. I tried fighting it. I'd tell myself to stop thinking. That worked for about 3 seconds. Then another thought would appear. Then another. Then another. The harder I pushed them away, the louder they seemed to become. At work, I started feeling the effects. I wasn't falling asleep at my desk or anything dramatic like that. I was functioning. But everything felt slightly harder. Simple decisions took more energy. My patience became thinner. Small problems felt bigger than they actually were. I wasn't exhausted. I was mentally crowded. Like my brain never got the chance to clear the room. One afternoon, I mentioned it to a coworker during lunch. I expected him to say what everyone says. Try sleeping earlier. Drink less coffee. Exercise more. Instead, he asked me something unexpected. What do you do when the thoughts show up? I laughed. What do you mean? I try not to think. He nodded slowly. Then he said something I couldn't stop thinking about. Maybe that's why they stay. At the time, it sounded ridiculous. Why would ignoring thoughts make them stronger? But later that night, lying in bed again, I remembered his comment. And I noticed something. Every thought felt like a problem I needed to solve. Every memory demanded analysis. Every worry demanded preparation. My brain wasn't just producing thoughts. I was engaging with every single one. Arguing. Planning. Defending. Explaining. It's hard to describe unless you've experienced it. Imagine sitting beside a busy highway and trying to stop every car that passes. That's what I was doing with my thoughts. No wonder I was exhausted. A few days later, I came across a sleep meditation video. Normally, I would have skipped it. Meditation always sounded too simple to solve something that felt so complicated. But after weeks of poor sleep, I figured I had nothing to lose. That night, I put my phone down, turned off the lights, and pressed play. A calm voice began speaking. There was no magical advice. No secret technique. Just a simple instruction. Notice your thoughts. Don't follow them. Don't fight them. Just notice them. Honestly, I didn't think it was working. Within seconds, my brain was producing its usual collection of worries, memories, and random observations. I kept getting distracted. Then I noticed something interesting. The voice never told me to stop thinking. It never treated thoughts like enemies. Instead, it treated them like background noise. That idea felt completely foreign. For years, I had assumed every thought deserved attention. Every mental notification seemed urgent. But what if it wasn't? What if a thought could simply exist without requiring a response? That question stayed with me. The next night, I tried again. And the night after that. I wasn't becoming a meditation expert. Far from it. My mind still wandered constantly. But slowly, something began changing. I started noticing the gap between having a thought and reacting to it. Before, those two things felt identical. A worry appeared. I immediately chased it. A memory appeared. I immediately analyzed it. A future scenario appeared. I immediately prepared for it. Now there was a small pause. A tiny space. Just enough to notice what was happening. And that tiny space changed everything. One night, I found myself worrying about a conversation scheduled for the next day. Normally, I would have spent 20 minutes mentally rehearsing every possible outcome. Instead, I noticed the thought. The meditation voice had suggested imagining thoughts like clouds passing through the sky. Cheesy, I know. But I tried it anyway. The thought appeared. I watched it. And then something strange happened. It left. Not immediately. Not dramatically. But without my attention feeding it, the thought lost momentum. Another thought arrived. Then another. Some stayed longer. Some disappeared quickly. But for the first time, I wasn't participating in every single one. I was observing. That distinction seemed small. Yet it felt revolutionary. Around that time, I started reading more about psychology and human behavior. One idea appeared repeatedly. The brain isn't designed to become silent. It's designed to think. Constantly. Generating possibilities, predictions, memories, concerns, ideas. That's its job. The real problem wasn't that my brain produced thoughts. The problem was my relationship with those thoughts. I had spent years believing that every thought represented reality. If I worried about something, it felt important. If I imagined a problem, it felt likely. If I remembered an embarrassing moment, it felt relevant. But thoughts aren't facts. They're mental events. Nothing more. That realization sounds obvious when you hear it. Yet living it feels completely different. Because most of us spend our lives reacting automatically. A thought appears. We believe it. A worry appears. We follow it. A fear appears. We treat it like evidence. Sleep meditation slowly taught me another possibility. Not control. Awareness. And awareness turned out to be more powerful than control. The funny thing is that better sleep wasn't the biggest change. The biggest change happened during the day. I became more aware of how often my mind pulled me away from the present moment. Standing in line at a coffee shop, my brain would jump into future worries. Driving home, it would replay old conversations. Walking through the grocery store, it would invent imaginary arguments that never happened. For years, I assumed that was normal thinking. Maybe it is. But now I could see it happening. And seeing it changed my relationship with it. One evening, I was sitting outside after work. Nothing special was happening. Cars passed. People walked by. The sun was beginning to set. Normally, my mind would have been somewhere else entirely. Instead, I found myself simply sitting there. Not forcing relaxation. Not chasing happiness. just present. And I realized something that felt surprisingly emotional. I had spent so much time living inside my thoughts that I had forgotten how much life exists outside them. The world hadn't changed. My schedule hadn't changed. My responsibilities hadn't changed. But my attention had changed. And attention shapes experience more than most of us realize. The nights became easier after that. Not perfect. I still have evenings when my brain becomes noisy. Everyone does. The difference is that I no longer panic when it happens. I don't interpret mental activity as a problem that needs solving. I don't wage war against my own thoughts. I let them arrive. I let them leave. And most nights, sleep eventually follows. The hidden truth wasn't that sleep meditation magically shuts off the brain. It doesn't. The brain keeps doing what brains do. Thinking. Remembering. Imagining. Predicting. The real lesson was something much deeper. Sometimes suffering doesn't come from the thoughts themselves. It comes from believing we must engage with every one of them. That realization changed more than my sleep. It changed how I understand myself. Because human psychology isn't really about controlling the mind. It's about understanding it. The more I observed my thoughts, the less power they seemed to have over me. Not because they disappeared. Because I stopped treating every thought like an emergency. Looking back now, I think that's why so many people struggle at night. Daytime keeps us distracted. Work. Conversations. Notifications. Responsibilities. But when the room becomes quiet, we finally hear what's been happening inside our minds all along. The silence doesn't create the noise. It reveals it. And maybe that's why sleep meditation helps. Not because it forces the mind into silence. But because it teaches us to stop fighting what was never the enemy. These days, when I lie awake and thoughts begin appearing, I remember something I once misunderstood. The goal isn't to stop thinking. The goal is to stop believing that every thought deserves your attention. And sometimes, the moment you stop chasing every thought, sleep quietly finds you. Maybe the most important question isn't why your brain won't shut off at night. Maybe the real question is, how much of your life have you spent listening to every thought, without ever asking whether it needed to be heard?